success, wealth, recognition. Gary Cooper had it all, lost it all, then turned a revolutionary discovery into the success paradox. Here's Gary.
Thank you for coming back to my conversation with Laura Gassner Otting, the acclaimed keynote speaker and author of Wonderhell, Why Success Doesn't Feel Like It Should and What to Do About It. This book is essential reading for anyone who has achieved success yet still yearns more. We've been talking about how to survive Wonderhell and coming out the other side stronger and more content today. Now, Laura, let's just say someone gets their life figured out and they finally achieve everything they've wanted, but then they experience imposter syndrome. Has this ever happened to you?
Oh, absolutely. Haven't you? Have you had imposter syndrome?
Oh my God, yeah. I was using hypothetical.
I mean, we're sitting here on your very first interview and your very first podcast, and I'm sure there's part of you that's like, I don't know what I'm doing. How is this going to go?
I'm an imposter right now, and that's for sure.
And I gotta say, that's amazing. The fact that you're an imposter says that you're doing something you never thought you'd be able to do. Rather than that voice being like, oh my God, you haven't done this before, we got to change that voice to, oh my gosh, you haven't done this before. Isn't this exciting? And here's the thing. I interviewed 100 different glass ceiling shatterers, Olympic medalists, startup unicorns, and everyday people like you and me when I wrote Wonderhell. And I was stunned to find out that every single one of them at every age and at every stage experienced crushing doubt, imposter syndrome, uncertainty, fear, and all the rest of the emotions that you and I are feeling right now, right? Like you're doing this very first interview for your very first podcast. I'm trying to launch a book. Like, is anybody going to listen? Is anybody going to read it? But rather than seeing imposter syndrome as this, like, okay, first of all, we got to talk about the name, right? Imposter syndrome. Imposter. You don't belong here. Maybe you should leave. Syndrome.
Right.
Are you sick? Do you have a fever? Maybe you should sit down. There's something wrong with you, right? The gall of the name itself is ridiculous. So the fact that we have imposter syndrome, we could hear that and say, oh, we don't belong. We're sick. Maybe we should leave. Maybe we should sit down. Or we could say, I have imposter syndrome. That's the truest sign that I know that I'm on the right track to doing even more, to breaking through and becoming even better. How awesome is that? And I think that if you were somebody who did not belong, you just wouldn't have imposter syndrome. You wouldn't know that this was something that you had to take seriously because you'd never done it before. You'd have Dunning-Kruger syndrome, right? Like you wouldn't get it. For 25 years, I stewarded people through massive moments of career shift and organizational disruption. And I can tell you, the ones who made it through were the ones who revered the chaos. The ones who didn't were the ones who didn't even realize there was chaos around them. But the ones who had that dream, that goal that was so exciting that they could almost only whisper it, those are the ones who not only made it through, but they thrived in it. So I say congratulations for having imposter syndrome. It's awesome.
Well, I told you I thought you and I were like twins separated at birth, but you were the smarter, better looking one. I've just always faked it until I made it. And I think what gets me through it is really and truly, in this particular case, and launching a book as well, is gratitude. I made it through what I consider hell. You know, I was very successful for a very long time and still am, thank goodness. But I also learned how to avoid a lot of really difficult situations. And also had a tragic thing. One of our best friend's kid killed himself. A lot of it had to do with comparing ourselves to others. Mm-hmm. And that's a deadly trap. You know, comparison is the thief of joy. Mm-hmm. That just really led me down a terrible road. And imposter syndrome was part of that. A comparison was another part of that. But now I'm just full of gratitude. So getting out ahead of my skis, yeah, it can be scary. But oh boy, it's worth it. Because I've spent the last 6 years helping people get out ahead of their skis and seeing that, you know what, it's okay. Or learning how to say no. Or learning how to tell them, I didn't know that the votes don't count, but I would tell them what someone else thinks of you is none of your business.
Yes.
And they were like, wait, what? And I'm like, what someone else thinks of you is none of your business. And you worded it a different way. Get rid of other people's votes.
Yeah, it took a long time for me to learn that lesson. And you know, I just turned 52, and my mother, who is about to turn 80, she said to me once when she was much younger that she was in the middle of her FU 40s. And I was like, you're what? And she's like, yeah, she was like, my FU 40s. She's like, if you like me, great. If you don't like me, great. That's on you. Like,
Isn't that awesome?
It's awesome. And now that I'm 52, I'm like, oh yeah, I see what she means. Because the truth is this. I'm probably not going to get much better. Like, this is who I am. Like, around the edges, I'll get a little, you know, more widely read. I might get a little wiser, but this is pretty much who I am. And I'm probably not going to get much worse. Although, you know, I mean, we all do sort of slide into our DNA at some point. My kids keep warning me. If I get criticism about something real, I'm going to go to school on that for sure. But for the most part, most of the critiques that are lobbed at me have much more to do with the person lobbing the critique than they do with me. And I figured that out after I sold my last business, and I was standing in line at Starbucks, and I ran into a friend who I hadn't seen in probably 6 months. And she's like, what are you up to? And I said, I just sold my business. And she's like, well, what are you going to do now? And I was like, I don't know. I think I might write a book. I think I might start speaking. I'm not really sure. And she looked at me, she goes, oh my God, you can't do that. That's too scary. And when I realized what she meant was, oh my God, I can't do that. I'm too scared. But here's what happened. Here's what happened. She said that to me. And in the moment, I didn't realize that. I realize it now, but in the moment, I heard her tell me that it was really scary. And so as soon as it started getting hard, I was like, maybe it is too scary. Maybe I shouldn't do it. Yeah. Maybe she was right.
The seed was planted.
Yeah, and it became this little cancer in my brain. And it just started this like nefarious, insidious attack on my courage, right? On my confidence, on my commitment, until I quit, until I was like, I can't do it. And finally I had somebody look at me and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, who said this to you? Like, how much would her praise mean to you? And I was like, I don't know, probably not that much. She goes, then why does their criticism mean anything to you? And I was like, oh, well, that's a mic drop right there.
It is crazy the impact of the outer world on us and social media, other people's opinions. And I let that dictate a lot of my life, my career. And truly, I would be like Tom Brady, using that as an example. Again, I'm not picking on Tom Brady. I wish I was Tom Brady sometimes. But, you know, I would take extreme risk to start another business to prove to other people that I was successful. Kind of using your example, I would do the opposite. I would go into drastic risk, drastic debt to start a business to prove to other people that I could be successful, just to prove it to myself.
So what is your definition of success?
You know, that's funny. I had that written for you as well. But my definition of success, you know, when I was a young man, I was a lot like how you described when you were in your 20s. I wanted to help patients stay out of nursing homes. That was my definition of success. Because when I was a little boy, I grew up in nursing homes. And in the 70s and 80s, that was a very, very sad place to be. And in 1996, we started a home health care company. And in 4 years, we became the top 100 home care companies in the country. Because I was passionate about what I was doing. And then my father passed away, and long story short, I got into the M&A world, and I got seduced into the M&A world. And I forgot about the passion of taking care of patients. And then all of a sudden, my definition of success changed. to business, M&A, EBITDA, those type things. And I got lost, to be perfectly honest, Laura. I got lost. And 6 years ago, I fell back in love with people. If I serve people, that's my definition of success today. And the paradox is we've become way more successful chasing people than I ever have chasing EBITDA. But the EBITDA has come.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds bizarre, but it's not bizarre. And so that's my definition of success. And I've also learned that I can have both. I don't have to work myself to death and forego my family. And so that's really the mission that I'm on, is to help people realize that you don't have to give up everything to be successful. So that's my definition of success.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And so what did you give up? I mean, there were clearly like puts and takes there. So I'm curious, did you decide that you had enough? Did you decide that it didn't matter? Did you just change your prioritization?
I changed everything. I gave the CEO job up and I started serving him. I learned some really cool things, and I put it in the book Success Paradox with my co-author Will. And I learned, as an entrepreneur like you and a go-getter and a relentless pursuer of success, I thought you had to work 18 hours a day, never give up to be successful. And then my preacher, I experienced my change through pain. And at the end, I was talking to a preacher and he said, Gary, if you really want to be productive, you have to rest. Kind of like you were talking when you went to your therapist. And I looked at my buddy beside me and I'm like, your preachers only work on Sunday, right? I had no idea how hard preachers work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I started resting and I started saying no. A lot of the things that I've learned from you actually preparing for this, I started saying no to things. I stopped saying yes to everything, or yes to things that weren't aligned with what I thought was important. It allowed me to focus. And I think of focusing like a magnifying glass. Just a simple magnifying glass can take the sun and catch things on fire. And so I quit saying yes to busyness and I started focusing on the patient experience or the employee's experience. And I quit just returning emails back and forth and thinking I was being productive just to make sure my inbox was clear. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's funny. A friend of mine, I posted something once about how I was trying to get to inbox 0 and he texted me and he's like, "Hey, so did you just get a raise? Did you just get a promotion? Did they put a new line in your position description that you have to get to inbox 0?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Because if your job isn't to get to inbox 0, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh,
I know, right?
You're right. You're right. This is like this, but again, this is this random thing that's been sort of put in place, right? This like random thing that suddenly we're like, oh, if I get to inbox 0, then I can post that on social media as a badge of high morality, a badge of honor, my martyrdom busyness badge. Yes.
Every inbox has to be to 0, every committee meeting, all those different things we think we have to do, we don't.
The best piece of professional or personal advice I ever got was this: you're just not that important. And I was like, what are you talking about? Right? I was like, what are you talking about? Of course I'm important. The time I got this advice, my last business was like, I don't know, 5 years old. My kids were 5 and 3. I was on a bunch of local boards and I was showing off, basically. I was complaining to a mentor about how busy I was. But yeah, like I was complaining, but I was really showing off. And I was like, oh, I'm so busy. I'm too busy. And she's like, I don't understand, Laura. You've got a healthy marriage, healthy kids, a thriving business. What's the problem? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I guess I yell at my kids too much. And she was like, well, tell me, what does that mean? And I said, well, I pick up my kids from school because, I want to be there. I want to be like totally present as a mom. But then I have this this phone I hold up. I think it was like my Palm Trio or something at the time. I'm like, I have this phone and I'm able to be at work at the same time. And so I could be everywhere at once. And she was like, what are you talking about? She's like, okay, first of all, if you're at the park with your kids and you're on your phone, they see that and they know you're not at the park with them. And if you're at the park and you're still texting with your workers, she's like, at best, you're a micromanager and you don't even want to know what at worst is. But like, maybe you could just put the phone in the trunk for an hour and be present with your family, or maybe put your kids in front of, Sesame Street for an hour and be present with your employees. Like, you can't be everywhere at once. And she's like, we're trying to be important to every single thing, every single moment, every single person, all the time. And she goes, and what's happening is you're not actually showing up for anybody or anything, and they see it. And what she was trying to tell me wasn't that I wasn't that important to my staff or to my kids. What she was trying to tell me was that there are moments with my staff and there are moments with my kids where I am that important. And I had better show the heck up there. And the rest of the time, I should maybe not try to pretend like I'm everywhere, because I'm not that important. And the message I was giving to everyone was that, in fact, they weren't important enough to get my full attention in all moments.
That is exactly what someone told me. And the follow-up with that, they said, if you really want to be influential, relentlessly stamp out hurry and indecision in your life. So I was the guy that would come into meetings 5 minutes late because I was in a hurry to go to the next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be checking my phone while I was in that meeting. And he knew I loved people. So he said, Gary, give them the gift of your time.
Yes.
And so now I show up to meetings. I try my best. I think I have some genetic mix-up with time in my head, but I try to be on meetings on time. I even have to put in my calendar, to be there on time. When I show up on time, I don't check my phone. And it is unbelievable that the fact that even though I'm not that important, my title is. So by showing up, it really is a sign of respect when I do show up to meetings on time. And then the flip side of that is it has reduced a dramatic amount of my anxiety. I used to have anxiety rushing from one place to the other.
Oh, yeah.
And so imagine the health benefits to me and you. You were talking about not being able to remember how many teaspoons go into the pie or how many bicep curls to do when you were losing sleep. So imagine the reduction of your blood pressure when your anxiety's down because you're showing up on time.
Mm-hmm.
And so compound that over 6 years. That's what I've been trying to get across to folks for 6 years. I hope that's what our book would do, but we're running low on time. I have one quick question about Wonderhell, and then I have a couple of speed round quick questions, fun ones I want to do with you.
Sure.
So if you had one quick takeaway, what do you want readers to really take away from Wonderhell?
Well, I would say that Wonderhell is that moment where the burden of your potential walks in and is like, hey there, what you got for me? What are you going to do with this newfound potential that you didn't know you had last week, last month, last year? And it's going to feel exciting and amazing and humbling and wonderful, but it's also going to feel anxiety provoking and stressful and fearful and identity questioning. It's going to feel like hell, and it's terrifying. But Wonderhell only presents itself to those worthy of it. So the fact that you are feeling like there is more inside of you tells you that you are capable of accomplishing it. The only question is, are you going to survive this moment, or are you going to learn to thrive in this moment? And so the lessons that I tell in the book are all from people who learned how to look forward to it, to plan for it, and to thrive in these moments of Wonderhell.
Laura, this is an important question, and this is the question I was thinking about all night long, and I forgot to ask it until now.
Okay.
There's a skill that one can develop. That moment that you're talking about, there's a part of us that's either our brain telling us, wait a minute, I'm experiencing this, and I know that your soul or your heart or something's telling you, wait, I'm at Wonderhell. I need to do this. Wait, I want to do this. And then maybe your brain takes over and says, wait, you can't do that because you have all these obligations. You have the kids, you have this. but your heart saying, I want to do it, and then your brain saying you can't do it. How does Laura Gassner Otting stop that debate and jump?
Well, sometimes I don't. So sometimes I do. If I can figure out a way to reprioritize, to hand off tasks, to ask those around me to help, right? Like I want to launch this book and I want it to be big, which means that about 2 months ago, I sat my family down and I said, March, April, May are going to be chaos. It's going to be very hard for me to, make sure that like dinner's on the table every night. Who's cooking dinner what night, right? I asked for help from those around me. I asked for help from my friends. I planned. I said, I want to stay in shape. I want to feel good. I want to be healthy. Make sure to like be my accountability buddy and meet me for a run twice a week. I actively asked those around me to help so that I could reprioritize my own attention and make sure that I stayed motivated and accountable for people. Gotcha. And also sometimes I don't. Sometimes I say, this sounds like an incredible thing. And in 6 months, I'm going to be an empty nester. That'll be the right time to do it. So there are all kinds of things we can do on the side to prepare ourselves. Like I knew I wanted to launch this book now. A year ago, I started building my network and my speaking reel and all the things I would need for this moment. So I think there's a lot of things, even if we're not ready to jump, we can start, for example, doing like deep squats in the gym so that when we're ready to jump, we have much more power to do it.
That's a great answer. I think there's two voices. There is for me anyway. There's two voices. There's that little voice deep down in me saying, hey, Gary, you really ought to take advantage of this, or you really ought to think about slowing down, or you really ought to think about stepping up. And then there's that voice in my head that says, you can't do that, or you should do that, or why didn't you speak to her? And then there's the voice in my head says, hey, you didn't need to speak to her. And it's almost like two voices, and you seem to have a system that allows you the right voice to prevail. And I think that's important.
I think that system often is the people you have around you. Like I always have 3 different types of people around me. Like I have aspirationals, people who I want to be, people who will walk the path before me, who know what I'm going through, who look at me and don't let me settle for mediocrity. I have peers who are in the trenches with me that I can complain to and that I can learn from and that I can teach. And then I have mentees, people who are trying to get to where I am. And when they ask me questions about how I did it and I tell them stories and help them, it reminds me that, in fact, I'm not so much of an imposter. I do kind of know a little bit about what I'm doing. So I think that those are good ways to quiet that voice.
That's really good. Okay, speed round.
Speed round.
How many marathons have you done?
I've done 5. I'm training for my 6th.
Where's your favorite marathon besides Boston?
I mean, how can I not say Boston? I guess I'll say New York because it's my fastest so far. Even though I did sprain my ankle at mile 4, I still finished it at a PR. So I guess I'll say New York. But it's hard not to say Boston.
All right, I'll give you Boston. I'll give you that. Favorite food?
Oh, gosh. My favorite food
If you could only have one food and you were on death row, what would it be?
Oh,
I give you 3 foods.
You're going to be so disappointed. I'll just give you one. I can do it. I'm going to be so disappointed. And you live in the South, so Publix supermarket sheet cake. That nasty, disgusting sheet cake, the kind that like the yellow
sheet cake, yeah.
Sheet cake. And the kind that like the yellow cake with the white icing that when you chew it, you can actually feel the granules of sugar in your teeth. It's disgusting. I actually just posted a photo of me housing an entire sheet cake on my birthday 6 weeks ago, announcing the launch of Wonderhell coming. So
that's hilarious. Is that from growing up in South Florida?
It is from growing up in Miami. I had that sheet cake every year for my birthday, and anytime I could get it in between. It is. I have eaten in 5-star restaurants all over the globe. Give me a Publix supermarket sheet cake, and I'm a happy girl.
That's hilarious. All right, one final question. If you could go anywhere in the world right now for 2 weeks, where would it be?
Oh my gosh. I would probably say a hut on stilts in Bora Bora.
Damn, you win.
Where would you go?
Right. I think, I really think I would like to go to, I don't know why, but I'd like to go to the Amalfi Coast in Italy.
Here it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think it is. Well, thank you so much, Laura Gassner Otting. I'm looking forward to Wonderhell. Our passions are so similar to helping people because I really do think business people really do change the world. I know they do. And I know that you're going to help so much, help people change the world by your efforts and your work. And you really are just an inspiration. I've enjoyed talking to you today, and I hope the rest of your day goes extremely well.
Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you too.
Same to you, Laura. And that wraps up the first episode of Success Paradox. If you like the show, please take a moment to subscribe so you'll get notified when we release new episodes. Also, if you have a moment, I'd like it if you left us a review so that other incredible individuals like you can learn about the show. I'll see you next time.
To learn and practice the Success Paradox lifestyle, visit GaryCCooper.com. The Success Paradox is a production of Forbes Books.